Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com with...
MiniWarGamer Dave here from MiniWarGaming.com.
You didn't want me to say it?
Well, no, you can say it.
No, it's okay. You already said it. No, you already said it.
I already said it. It's too late now.
This is a dark potential developer's diary. As you can see by the fact that there's different t-shirts on, although we actually have the same t-shirt, but different from the last one. This is a new day. And
it's a good thing you clarified that. It was actually, what are you talking about? We're in the same shirt.
I know, but different from the last developer's diary. We do these kind of in a few in a row.
Yes.
And we've already talked about the 21st century, so hopefully you've already watched all of those videos. We've received a lot of good feedback, and there's been a surge of action or activity on the forum as well. And so I'm getting a lot of good ideas. So keep it coming. I'm not going to respond to the comments in this video. We're going to save that for a future video where I'll go through and I'll talk about things that have been brought up in the comments. Although there is one thing I want to respond to. I won't specifically talk about the people. Like there's certain comments that seem to crop up no matter what we do. And that is somebody saying, there's no way that we'll have this by this time. Or we'll definitely have this by this time. And so basically trying to refute some of the ideas that I've had in that case. For the majority of people have been quite happy with what they've heard from my just the reactions in the comments. People are really liking the new style of the story as opposed to what it used to be. So that's good. But some people are like, oh, there's no way we're going to have this by that time. It's impossible. And my response to that is simple. How the crap do you know?
That's a good answer.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, if you were to go back 30 years, heck, let's look at movies like Back to the Future, Terminator, all these different movies that talk about the future. And they get their sci-fi so wrong, and yet they're popular. So obviously, you don't have to be 100% accurate at predicting the future.
Which is like science fiction or something.
Yeah, exactly. And at least we're trying to keep science in it.
Yeah.
I was watching an episode from The Universe. It's a History Channel series, which is really good at, by the way. And one of their episodes was science fiction versus science fact. And they talked about movies and how far off they sometimes get. And they talked about Armageddon. And the scientists just kind of made fun of it.
The movie Armageddon?
Yeah, they're like, there is just fiction. There was no science. It's like you don't go up, drill a hole into an asteroid, which wouldn't have nearly the amount of gravity that they showed people jumping around on it. It was just basically a way that they didn't have to produce a movie in zero gravity, right? And then blow it up with a nuke. Because all of a sudden it goes from one asteroid that'll hit and kill half the world to thousands of asteroids that'll smash all over the world and destroy everybody. So it's just funny. But yet those movies get popular, right?
Yeah, that movie grossed over $200 million.
Yeah. So there's more to it than the science, and I realize that. And other people have said that too, that this is good, but we need to get to the rules and the other things too, which we will get to. So I agree. The science needs to be good. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's impossible, because we can't possibly know exactly what's going to happen in the future. And I do not have the knowledge of all the physicists and scientists in the world. Therefore, I will make mistakes. But at the same time, we're trying to keep it realistic. But in the end, what's really going to matter is the artwork, the rule system, the world is going to matter.
I think the key is, like, as long as it's believable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just good looking and fun and everything. Because you see so many things, science fiction, like comic books are a really good example of this. XMen, like it's so far out there. There's everything they do just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like it's just a little premise that they've blown up into a huge comic book series, which is incredibly popular. So obviously people are willing to look beyond flaws in the science part of it. But I'm trying to minimize those as much as I can. So if you think that I'm wrong and that something will be sooner or later than what I said, that's fine. I don't really care.
How the crap do you know? That was a good answer.
It's true. Like, how do you know? You have to claim. That's just. It's a big thing to say. This is definitely not going to be the case. Anyway. So we're moving on. We've already talked about the 21st century. At the end of the 21st century, just a quick recap. Where's my piece of paper? Here we are. So DNA sequencing is complete. We've got our quantum computers. They're becoming the norm now. They are the norm at this point. They're commercially available. So computer era has restarted and is growing again. Global warming is a problem. But dark fusion has been discovered but not implemented. Room temperature superconductors are there. So we're starting to deal with the energy problems, but global warming is still an issue. Space travel is still limited. We've got some colonies on Mars, the asteroid belt, but they're very small. We got our first space elevator created. And that's pretty exciting because it really reduces costs. And one person pointed out that there's other ways to reduce costs to get to space as well. And those will be included here. I'm just including just a broad framework as well. So there's more than just space elevators that are ways to get people into space. Like there's one where you piggyback on the back of a plane. The jet goes up with a shuttle on the back. So it takes you up pretty high, and then the shuttle goes the rest. So it doesn't require the same amount of fuel to get into space. So that's a cheaper way to get up there as well, competitive to the space elevator. But and future technologies after this will allow ships just to take off from the ground, because if they have the right kind of drives, and heck, once we can start manipulating gravity, then these things can basically make themselves weightless and just fly off with very little effort. But that'll come way later. World War III happened mid-21st century. A lot of the smaller countries are getting annexed. Canada's taken over the United States. I'm just joking. That didn't happen. I'm tempted, though. Canada is the one that invents the quantum computer. One person suggested that it should be a company, a corporation that invents the quantum computer, and then that can kind of play into politics. I like the idea, but at the same time I don't. I kind of like governments being the reigning factions, and corporations can kind of come in later on. As soon as you add corporations, you start to really step away from realism, I find.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Umbrella corporation. Yeah. Umbrella corporation.
Right, like a corporation which is basically a government. Like you start to...
Have you heard of the Umbrella Corporation?
No. What's the Umbrella Corporation?
They're the ones that created the T virus and the G virus, and they blew up a city called Raccoon City.
Is this for real life? In real life?
Well, it's real to a lot of people. I mean...
You're talking about some sort of fiction.
Well, it should be fiction. Yeah, because I don't think there's a place called Raccoon City.
Right, of course. So I'm talking about real life. Like in real life, corporations have a great effect on the economy, but governments are usually the ones that are funding a lot of the different things. But in fiction, you often get the opposite. Governments are pulled back, and it's the corporations that become the superpowers. Which, that's fine. I'm not disagreeing with that couldn't ever happen.
You've got to wonder if that is actually what's happening, but it's just we don't think that in the world because they don't want us to think that.
Sure, but whatever it is, I want it to feel like something that's happening right now. So governments are going to play... There might be maybe a corporation. I know that one of the factions is called the corporation. That's going to be in Dark Potential, but that's going to be separate. And we'll get to that. That's more something that evolves after the war, after the apocalyptic event that wipes out most of humanity. That there's a corporation, there's some surviving members of it that band together, and that creates that faction.
Umbrella Corporation is from Resident Evil.
Is it Resident Evil?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it sounded familiar, but I'm not a big fan of Resident Evil, so.
I've been since 1996. I can't help it.
I know you are.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a bad game. I'm just
zombies. You can't go wrong.
Right, exactly. Anyway,
the games, not the movies. The movies are a different story. But
yeah, of course. I haven't really seen any of the movies. I barely played the games. Play the old ones.
At my house.
Yeah.
Late at night, we're scared and running to your car.
Yeah. Something like that. I don't know. Anyways, early 22nd century. That's what we're adding into that for this video right here. Wow, 8-minute intro. But we still had to talk about those things. I had to respond to a few things. So early 22nd century, we're talking 2101 to roughly 2135. So let's go through the major areas again. So genetics, first off. We've already talked about how DNA has been mapped in the late 21st century. Well, in the early 22nd century, most genetic diseases have actually been cured. Because they've been able to map it, they've been able to find all those different genetic diseases that people are born with and that kind of grow, whether when they're old or young, doesn't really matter. They've found where those are, and they've repaired the DNA and been able to figure out how to repair the DNA so that those diseases don't happen. This will have some other effects later on, but in the early 22nd century, it's this wonderful breakthrough. Everybody thinks that's awesome. This actually cures cancer for a while, because cancer is somewhat a genetic disease. It's majorly a genetic disease. And so everybody thinks it's this wonderful time that humanity is going to blossom because all these diseases are being cured, which they are at that time, which is great. Computers continue to grow exponentially in speed, although not quite as fast as the silicon era. It's not doubling the speed every 18 months. It's not quite that fast, but they're still growing quite quickly as quantum computer technology increases and it's refined, and the better materials and better whatever is required to make quantum computers better. I don't know enough about them to know what makes them better, so it's just people are figuring it out. Scientists are doing better. Global warming finally has an answer. And what they've done is they've managed to genetically engineer plants that are used to absorb carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. Now, plants already absorb carbon dioxide.
I was going to say that
But I mean, these ones
out of
are
the
like
atmosphere.
well, that's what plants are.
What happens here on like the ground?
Yeah,
does
but
it
they
happen up in space. Like,
well, the atmosphere is like
are you talking about like the
atmosphere
like
starts
within the ozone?
no, we're
What do
talking
you
about the atmosphere. The atmosphere starts at ground level and goes all the way up until we reach space. Right? The atmosphere is that whole area. So
Because if there's no atmosphere, you're in space, right?
exactly.
Yeah. But how far does it go up? Like,
well, I
straight
don't know
ground,
the-
does it like go like 100 miles up?
Yeah, but it's still pulling carbon dioxide out, which will pull it from higher as well. It all just distributes itself, right? So it's when I say from the atmosphere, it's just like trees do, except these ones are more like super carbon dioxide eaters. Like where a tree will pull in a certain amount, which trees do actually pull in a lot of carbon dioxide. These will pull in way more. So these are used extensively worldwide with great success. It actually manages to help decrease the overall temperature. And so it's starting to reverse the effects of global warming.
So did Canada get a winner again?
Yeah, we didn't really have winter this year, did we? At least not down in southern Canada. Now, some people are worried about unexpected side effects as these plants, which have been genetically modified, are starting to go into the ecosystem, meaning that they're planted and then animals will eat them, and then other animals will eat those animals, and eventually we eat those animals. And so some people are worried about the side effects of that, but they can't really, with all the scientific knowledge they have at that time, they can't see any harm in it. So they're just genetically modified to do something different. What harm could that possibly create?
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Yeah. At the same time, another part, like this is like a golden era. I'm kind of realizing now that I'm saying all of this early 22nd century, because in energy, dark fusion is commercialized. And we're talking large dark fusion plants. We're not talking, portable batteries that do dark fusion. That comes way later. So this leads to a rapid reduction in the use of nuclear fission, like the nuclear power we have today, and fossil fuels. Now, it's not small enough to fit into a vehicle, so it leads more to electric vehicles. And the problem with electric vehicles today, people are it's a pretty naive thing to say an electric vehicle is better for the environment, because the problem is, when you plug it into the wall, where is that electricity coming from? It's coming from a coal plant, or a nuclear plant, or an oil plant, like something that is using fossil fuels, most likely. There's some places, there's obviously renewable energy sources that we do use, but the majority is still fossil fuels. But here we have dark fusion power, which is actually really, really clean power. It has, the byproducts are completely natural and clean and can be used, and we don't have to worry about radiation and all those side effects. And so this puts clean electricity into the grid, which means that electric cars can be used. So fossil fuels, rapidly reduced. Quickly after that, dark fusion becomes one of the top providers of energy worldwide.
So instead of a coal plant, it was a dark fusion plant.
Exactly.
Oh.
Just like instead of a nuclear power plant, it would be a dark fusion power plant.
Oh, okay.
So same idea, except it wouldn't look anything like a nuclear power plant because you wouldn't have these big stacks of all this other crazy stuff.
Exhaust?
Yeah, exactly.
What would it look like?
I don't know.
Okay.
I would need somebody to come up with the art for that. You think I'm an artist? I have a hard time conceptualizing those kind of things, which is why I need to hire artists to do that. Either way, it's dark fusion power plants rather than nuclear power plants.